She calls herself a whistleblower. The Navy calls her a liar.
And that's not all they're calling her. How did a Beaufort woman lose her once promising Navy career? As Fox 5 I-Team reporter Randy Travis discovered, it all depends on who you ask. Randy?
Say, Russ and Sine, former Lieutenant Commander Syneeda Penland has always insisted she's an innocent victim of the military-industrial complex, punished for challenging wasteful or fraudulent spending. Regardless, what happened to her in the military has a name in the civilian world: convicted felon. You're convicted of felony adultery.
Interesting. I never even thought of that.
Syneeda Penland is now part of Navy history, the kind that earns you a Scarlet Letter instead of a Purple Heart. Were any of those pictures of you and him having sex?
No.
According to her lawyer, this Gwinnett woman is the first single female Navy officer ever thrown in the brig for adultery. But the story doesn't end there.
Whether it's adultery, whether it's fraud, let's let the public weigh. Which one is more important? Do they want gossip? Messy gossip? Do you want to see my pictures? I could have already been making millions. Look at Atlanta Housewives. This is a perfect story for them, but I'm not trashy like that. I'm sorry.
Penland's perfect story really began at the sprawling Naval Base in San Diego back in the mid-2000s, when she was put in charge of processing millions of dollars in Gulf War expenditures. In early 2007, a female Navy chief accused Penland of having an affair with her husband, Lieutenant Wiggan, who once served under Penland and became friends when they were both assigned to the destroyer Stout.
It was just kind of husband and wife. They were going at it with each other, and I got caught in the middle of it.
She sure did. That upset wife gave the Navy pictures that she found on her husband's laptop. Pictures showing Penland and that husband, each in some compromising positions. Now, we don't have those pictures, but we couldn't show them to you anyway. They're supposedly that graphic. Penland later explained to the Navy she had loaned Wiggan her digital camera to document abuse in his crumbling marriage, forgetting that she had earlier taken pictures of herself having sex with another man during a wild night of drinking. Then she says her photos must have gotten mixed up on Wiggan's laptop with pictures of him having sex with another woman. There are no identifiable pictures showing both in the same shot. But when she refused an administrative punishment, the Navy eventually moved to court-martial Penland.
And I was like, really? You guys are going to come at me like that? So when you can see through the smoke screen, it was never about the pictures. I was single, and if you want to put this on camera, you can. I could have had sex with the whole fleet and would not be guilty of adultery.
A civilian signed this affidavit claiming he was the one she was having sex with in those racy photos. Even after being offered immunity, that junior officer, Wiggan, denied under oath he was sleeping with Penland. But prosecutors produced other evidence, including emails between the two that discussed Penland being pregnant with his child. That looks suspicious, you got to admit.
Well, to look suspicious in an email, when you can look at my medical history, I was scheduled for a hysterectomy during that time.
She suggests the estranged wife faked those emails. In 2008, a general court-martial convicted Penland of adultery, making a false statement and 2 other counts. She served 45 days in the brig, ultimately kicked out of the Navy just months shy of her 20-year retirement. No honorable discharge, no military pension.
When you transmit naked pictures of yourself to a junior officer and his wife, you've got a real problem.
Steve Shoemaker practices law in Metro Atlanta and often represents veterans in court. He is not involved in the Penland case. Do you think the public should feel sorry for her?
I can't feel sorry for her because, among other things, the Navy gave her an opportunity to resolve this with an administrative reprimand. To an extent, she did it to herself by refusing the lesser form of punishment.
But Penland argues the entire case was concocted to shut her up because she witnessed massive amounts of spending waste and corruption.
I was like, you guys are stealing here.
The Inspector General substantiated 3 of her 14 allegations, including contractors who performed personal services for command staff. She's since written a book, Broken Silence, A Military Whistleblower's Fight for Justice, which details more corruption allegations. But even the timing of her official complaints raises questions. They told you that they were going to charge you with adultery, and then 4 days later is when you start to complain.
It's about justice, and it's about retaliation. It's about abuse of authority.
Were you in love with Lieutenant Wiggan?
No, why would I be in love with him? Why would I be in love with him?
Well, you let him stay at your house.
He was a friend. He was a friend, and that's what we do in the military.
Last month, in a legal motion she filed herself, Syneeda Penland finally won her first battle. A federal judge ruled the Navy should have considered whistleblower status when Penland asked for clemency. She's hoping that decision will ultimately lead to an honorable discharge and to retire with a full 20 years service.
Her victory in this appeal does not affect her actual conviction for adultery, though. It only means the Board for Correction of Naval Records should weigh the possibility that she was a whistleblower while considering her request to change her punishment. And no word, Syneeda and Russ, on when that decision might come down.
So what happened to the man who she supposedly was having the affair with, Wiggan?
As far as we can tell, he was never punished, and he is still in the Navy. At least he was not kicked out of the Navy. We understand he perhaps has retired since then. And it raises a question, you know, if she's guilty of adultery, what about the guy with whom she was supposedly having the affair? Why wasn't he prosecuted?
The married man.
The married man, exactly. I'm told that for punishment purposes, the harsher punishment always goes to the senior officer, and she was the senior officer in this alleged relationship, but it's not clear why he was not prosecuted.
Very interesting. Randy, thanks so much for that report.
Okay.
Appreciate it.